If you are 60, 70, or 80 years old, I need you to hear this clearly, right at the start, because it is not an exaggeration. Doctors who study aging will tell you, quietly, in ways that rarely make it into a routine checkup, that how fast you walk and how strong your legs are right now is one of the single strongest predictors we have of how long you're going to live. Not a guess. Not a scare tactic. Researchers who pooled data from thousands of older adults across multiple countries found that something as simple as your ordinary walking speed predicts survival almost as reliably as many advanced medical tests. Weak legs don't just mean a harder morning. Over time, they are quietly linked to a shorter one. That is exactly why I titled this video the way I did, and I promise you, by the end, you will understand precisely why your legs, more than almost anything else in your body, deserve your attention today. Now, I want you to try something with me right now before we go any further. Wherever you're sitting, stand up, then sit back down, just once. Did you do it? Good. Now think about how that actually felt. Was it smooth, easy, automatic, the way it's always been? Or did you find yourself leaning forward first, maybe using your hands on the armrest, maybe bracing a little before you pushed up? That tiny detail, something that takes less than 3 seconds, is one of the exact measurements researchers use in the studies I just mentioned to you. Most people have no idea they just took a version of it. Here's what almost nobody tells you. Your legs are usually the very first part of your body to show that you're growing older. Not your memory, not your eyesight, not even your skin, your legs. Long before anything else changes, the muscles in your thighs and calves begin a slow, silent decline. And by the time you actually notice it, walking up a flight of stairs, getting out of a low chair, catching yourself after a stumble, you've often already lost a meaningful piece of the strength you used to take for granted, and quietly moved yourself into a higher risk category without ever being told. I'm Dr. Robert Hale, and what I want to share with you today isn't a secret exactly. It's something buried in research papers most people will never read, sitting in language most people will never wade through. So I did the wading for you. 6 foods tied directly to the muscles that just predicted so much about your future. Ranked not by hype, not by how exciting they sound on a label, but by how strong and how consistent the actual evidence is. And I promise you this, by the end of this video, you'll understand something about your own legs that you didn't understand this morning, and exactly what to put on your plate starting today. But before we get into the list, I want to ask you something, because I mean this sincerely. How old are you? And be honest with me, have you noticed your legs feeling different lately? Heavier on the stairs, a little less steady stepping out of the shower. Maybe there was a moment, just a stumble, nothing serious, but it scared you more than you let on. I want you to write it in the comments. Your age and what you've noticed. I read every single one, and I promise you, whatever you're feeling, there is someone reading this exact comment section who needed to hear that they're not the only one. All right, let's begin. 6 down to 1. Number 6, eggs. I want you to picture someone, maybe someone a lot like you, who was told decades ago, by a well-meaning doctor, in an era when the science looked different than it does now, to avoid egg yolks entirely. Whites only. No exceptions. And so for 30, 40 years, that's exactly what they did. Scrambled egg whites every single morning, dutifully, faithfully, believing it was the responsible thing to do. Here's the uncomfortable truth. That advice, for most healthy older adults, has aged about as well as milk left out on the counter. Because it turns out the yolk, the part everyone was taught to fear, is carrying some of the very compounds your legs need most. Let me explain why, because the mechanism here is genuinely fascinating. Your muscles are not static. Right now, as you listen to this, tissue in your legs is being broken down and rebuilt, constantly, a process that never stops as long as you're alive. The problem is that as we age, our muscles become stubborn. They stop responding to that rebuilding signal the way they used to. Researchers have a term for this, anabolic resistance, but I like to think of it more simply, like a smoke detector with an old battery. The wiring still works. The alarm can still sound. It just needs a louder trigger to go off. Leucine, an amino acid found richly in eggs, is one of the loudest triggers we know of. And whole eggs, yolk included, have been shown in research comparing them directly to egg whites to stimulate that muscle rebuilding response more effectively than whites alone. The yolk also carries vitamin D and choline, both quietly involved in how muscle cells function day to day. Now, I'm not going to stand here and tell you that eating eggs alone will rebuild your legs. That would be dishonest, and this channel doesn't do dishonest. But as one piece of a diet with enough overall protein, especially paired with staying active, eggs are one of the more efficient, most affordable tools available to you. 2 eggs at breakfast. That's genuinely all it takes to start. And here's a question worth sitting with as we move to the next one. What if the food your body needs most isn't some rare, expensive superfood, but something sitting in your refrigerator right now that you've been quietly avoiding for the wrong reasons? Number 5. Fatty fish. Salmon, sardines, mackerel. Picture someone like your neighbor, or maybe a friend from your church group, who wakes up most mornings with legs that feel stiff, almost swollen, before their feet have even touched the floor. It eases up an hour or two later, and then, quietly, predictably, it comes back again the next morning. If that sounds familiar to you, even a little, there's a real chance that something called chronic low-grade inflammation is part of what's happening underneath the surface. Inflammation itself isn't the enemy. It's how your body heals a cut, fights off a cold, recovers from a hard day of yard work. The problem is that as we age, a certain baseline level of inflammation seems to simmer quietly in the background all the time, even on days when nothing feels obviously wrong. And researchers increasingly believe this slow-burning inflammation contributes to muscle tissue breaking down faster than the body can repair it. This is exactly where the omega-3 fats in fatty fish, specifically 2 compounds called EPA and DHA, do some of their most important work. Let me give you a study that genuinely stopped me when I first read it. Researchers followed a group of older women through 90 days of strength training. Half of them added a fish oil supplement to their routine, half did not. Same training program, same number of sessions, same effort. The group taking the omega-3s saw roughly 20% greater improvement in their lower body strength than the group doing the identical workout without it. 20% from the same training, just with this one addition sitting alongside it. Other research has connected higher omega-3 levels in the bloodstream to faster, steadier walking speed in older adults, which, if you think about it, is really just a real-world scoreboard for how well your legs are functioning. I want to be fair with you here, because that's the whole point of this channel. Not every study agrees on exactly how large this effect is, and omega-3s appear to work best as a partner to movement, not a replacement for it. But wild salmon, sardines, or mackerel, worked into your week 2 or 3 times, sits near the top of the evidence for a reason. And if the idea of cooking fish that often feels like a chore, a tin of sardines on toast, unglamorous as it sounds, will do the job just as well. There's one more piece of this puzzle, though, one that connects fish to something else entirely, something most people never think to link to their legs at all. We'll come back to that thread in a moment. We're at the halfway point now, and I want to pause here for just a second. If something in the last few minutes has shifted the way you think about your own plate, even slightly, would you tap that thumbs up button? It genuinely helps this reach more people exactly like you, people who are searching for real answers instead of empty promises. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I'd be glad to have you here. Every week I dig through the research so you don't have to, and I bring it to you straight. No fear tactics, no miracle cures, just what the evidence actually says. Number 4. Leafy greens, spinach, kale, Swiss chard. Have you ever watched someone in their 70s or 80s move through a room and thought, how are they doing that so easily? No shuffling, no pushing off the arms of the chair, just steady, unhurried, confident movement. It's tempting to chalk that up to luck or good genes, and maybe for some people it is. But often a surprisingly large piece of that ease comes down to something you'd never guess just by looking. Circulation. Blood flow to the legs specifically. As we age, our blood vessels naturally lose a little of their flexibility, their responsiveness. This can mean that oxygen and nutrients don't always reach your leg muscles as efficiently as they once did, particularly when you're up and moving. Leafy greens are rich in compounds called dietary nitrates, which your body converts into nitric oxide, a molecule that helps blood vessels relax and widen, like a narrow hallway suddenly opening into a wider one. Now, I need to be honest with you about something, because I'd rather earn your trust than your clicks. The research on this specific mechanism is genuinely mixed. Some studies have found that nitrate-rich foods improve blood flow and oxygen delivery to working muscles in older adults. Other, more recent studies looking specifically at blood flow in the legs during exercise haven't found a significant effect. Scientists are still working out exactly who benefits and under what circumstances. I won't pretend that question is fully settled, because it isn't. What is far less debatable is that leafy greens are loaded with magnesium, a mineral deeply involved in how your muscles contract and then, just as importantly, relax. If you've ever been jolted awake at 2 in the morning by a leg cramp that felt like your calf was trying to fold in half, magnesium tends to come up in that conversation. And I'll be honest with you here too, the research directly linking magnesium intake to cramp relief is more mixed than most wellness articles will admit. But leafy greens remain one of the single most nutrient-dense foods available to us, cramps or no cramps, and working a cup or two into your day, lightly sautéed with a little olive oil to help your body absorb what's inside them, is a habit worth building on its own merits. Number 3. Greek yogurt. Most of us grew up thinking of yogurt as a light snack, something you eat when you're trying to be good. But plain, full-fat Greek yogurt is quietly one of the more efficient protein sources available to an aging body, and I don't think it gets nearly enough credit. A single cup can carry somewhere around 17 to 20 grams of protein, and it arrives with all the essential amino acids your muscles need already built in, absorbed quickly and efficiently. Compare that to many plant-based protein sources, which bring real value in other ways, but often need to be paired with something else on the plate to be considered complete on their own. Here's where it gets genuinely interesting, and this is a piece of research I didn't expect to find as compelling as I did. Scientists have started studying something they call the gut-muscle connection. It turns out the bacteria living quietly in your digestive system may play a far bigger role in muscle health than anyone suspected even 10 years ago. Research has found that older adults with more diverse, healthier gut bacteria tend to also have better muscle mass and stronger physical performance. Probiotic-rich foods, the live cultures sitting in a good Greek yogurt, are one of the more accessible ways to support that internal environment. Picture someone like a retired teacher you might know, who started having a cup of Greek yogurt most afternoons, not chasing some dramatic transformation, just a small, sustainable habit, added quietly to an otherwise ordinary day. That's really what this comes down to. Not a single dramatic change, but small, repeated choices stacked over months. One practical note, because the details genuinely matter here. Reach for plain, full-fat versions where you can. The low-fat versions on the shelf often make up for the missing fat with added sugar, which quietly works against the very inflammation we're trying to calm. A spoonful of ground flaxseed or a handful of berries stirred in gives you flavor without undoing the benefit. Number 2, and I'll warn you now, this one tends to catch people off guard, beets. I understand the raised eyebrows. Beets aren't exactly the first food that comes to mind when you picture strong, capable legs. But the research on beets and physical performance has genuinely caught the attention of sports scientists and, increasingly, researchers studying healthy aging too. Remember those dietary nitrates I mentioned with leafy greens? Beets contain them in far higher concentration, several times more per serving than most leafy greens carry. In controlled studies, beet juice has been shown to measurably improve blood flow readings in the legs of older adults shortly after consumption, and in exercise research, it's been linked to better muscle oxygenation and faster recovery after activity. I want to give you the complete picture here, though, not just the exciting part. Not every study has found a dramatic real-world improvement in things like walking distance or exercise stamina, especially in people with more significant circulation challenges. This is genuinely an area where the science is still catching up to the enthusiasm surrounding it. What does seem consistent, fairly reliably, is the effect on blood vessel function itself, how readily your vessels open and deliver blood where it's needed. Whether that translates into a noticeably easier walk up your particular staircase is something the research hasn't fully nailed down yet, and I would rather tell you that honestly than promise you something I can't stand behind. Roasted beets? A simple beet salad or beet juice worked in a few times a week is a low-risk way to include this while the research continues to develop. If you've never cooked with beets before, roasting them with a little olive oil and fresh thyme is a good, forgiving place to start. Far more approachable than most people expect. And that brings us to number 1. The food that, when I first went through the research on it, genuinely changed how I think about fat in the diet altogether. Extra virgin olive oil. If you came of age during the decades when fat was treated as public enemy number 1, this one might take some getting used to. But olive oil, specifically the good, extra virgin kind, has become one of the most heavily studied foods in the entire field of healthy aging, and there's a reason for that. Olive oil is rich in polyphenols, plant compounds with genuine anti-inflammatory properties. One of them, called oleocanthal, has been studied for its ability to calm certain inflammatory pathways in the body. Now, I need to be careful here because you may have come across claims online comparing this directly to anti-inflammatory medication, practically calling it a natural substitute. That comparison oversimplifies things considerably, and I'm not going to repeat it to you as settled fact because it isn't. What the research does genuinely support is that regular olive oil consumption, woven into an overall Mediterranean-style way of eating, has been associated across multiple studies with better preserved muscle mass and leg strength in older adults compared to diets that use very little of it. There's also a fascinating connection happening at the cellular level. Some of the compounds in olive oil appear to support the health of your mitochondria, which are essentially the power plants living inside every one of your muscle cells, responsible for generating the energy your legs draw on just to carry you through an ordinary day. As those power plants become a little less efficient with age, muscles tire more quickly and take longer to bounce back. Here's the practical piece, and it's simpler than you might expect. This isn't about drowning every meal in oil. Somewhere around 2 to 3 tablespoons a day, used as your main cooking fat, drizzled generously over vegetables, or whisked into a simple dressing, sits within the range most of these studies have actually looked at. One small detail that genuinely matters: buy it in a dark glass bottle, and if the label includes a harvest date, check it. The beneficial compounds in olive oil fade with time and light exposure, so fresher really does mean better here, not just marketing language. So let's bring this all together. Eggs, fatty fish, leafy greens, Greek yogurt, beets, olive oil. I won't stand here and call this a miracle formula, because there isn't one, and anyone promising you one is asking for your trust while giving you very little in return. What this actually is a collection of small, evidence-supported habits that, layered together over weeks and months, and paired with regular movement, even something as unglamorous as a daily walk around the block, give your body genuinely better raw material to work with. Here's the image I want to leave you with. Muscle isn't something you lose all at once, in one dramatic moment. It fades quietly, meal by missed meal, year by year, so gradually that you barely notice until the stairs feel steeper than they used to. But here's the part I need you to really sit with, because it matters more than anything else I've said today. It can also be rebuilt quietly, the same way it was lost, meal by meal, week by week. Researchers have found that muscle tissue retains a genuinely meaningful capacity to respond and adapt well into people's 80s and 90s. It is not too late. I say that not to comfort you, but because it happens to be true. I want you to picture something for me, not a stranger, not some abstract idea, but yourself, 6 months from now, walking into your own backyard without a second thought about the 2 steps down to the grass, kneeling down to pull a weed, or to help a grandchild tie their shoe, and standing back up without needing to think about it first. That's not a fantasy. That's what stronger legs actually buy you, not vanity. Ordinary, unremarkable moments given back to you. I'll leave links to some of the research I mentioned today in the description so you can read it yourself, or bring it up with your own doctor, who knows your history far better than I ever could from behind a camera. If something in this video shifted how you think about your own plate even a little, I'd genuinely love to know. Tell me which of these 6 you're going to try first. Tell me how your legs have actually been feeling. This channel exists because of conversations like that one, so don't be a stranger in the comments. Take care of yourself, keep moving as much as you comfortably can, and I'll see you in the next one.